On the minibus to Stara Zagora, I was listening to Lily Ivanova's song, Condemned Souls, and everything was absolutely clear to me, and when I understood, I started praying to be granted a reprieve. My earliest memories are that I am a glowing energy separating from a larger sphere and starting to move more and more slowly, and the light itself begins to fade. And I brought him. And she looked at me and said, "Is this the girl?" And I said, "Yes, this is sir." She said, "And this is the landlord." And I said, "Out of all of Blagovgrad, I ended up with the landlord?" And she said, "Apparently." I feel like something is sucking me in, like a vacuum, and I end up back in the starting position in the hallway.
Yeah, right. Wow, it's amazing that you're sharing this.
I can't realize or understand what's happening.
Hey, that's it. Timelines are explained with Territor. That's the coolest way I've ever heard.
The smallest things in life can explain very big ones. He died in my arms with the words, "I love you." We parted in the most... It may sound strange, but... in the most beautiful way. I wanted to be helped, and so the egg started to move and began to rise, and from there I ended up in a small spaceship, which is medical. On a purely physical level, I felt an invisible hand pushing me back, and instead of falling forward, I actually stumbled backward. Through a friend, I was sent the book Medical Medium, which, in the same way, through Synchronicities, led me to this studio. Otherwise, my mother was sick with cancer and died of cancer, and when she passed away, a few months after that, it happened that my migraine attacks, which I've had since I was little, became more frequent. She was always very worried about what it was actually. She didn't know it was a migraine. I found out after she had passed away, and I went for an examination after she had already passed away. And on the magnetic resonance imaging, it was seen that I have several white spots in my brain, and accordingly, blockage of the blood vessels. After that, a client of mine, to whom I don't really tell what exactly is happening to me or what illnesses I have, called me to book an appointment for a manicure. And I booked her an appointment. But a few days later, she calls me and says, "I'm not well, I'm in the hospital in Stara Zagora, I won't be able to come. Cancel my appointment." So I cancel her appointment. A week and a half later, she calls me again and says, "Margot, I want to book an appointment." And I say, "Okay," and I book her an appointment. She comes in, sits down and says, "Well, I really want you to do my nails, but I'm worried. I want to tell you something." I say, "Go ahead." When I went into the hospital, I fainted. And then a woman appeared to me and said she was your mother.
To her?
To her. And she told me that...
And does the woman do anything?
Nothing. She doesn't do anything.
She just...
Absolutely nothing. And this woman claims to be your mother and tells me that I should come to you to give you an energy session. And I started to understand what this was about because my mother, after she got cancer, started going to yoga, developing in that direction, Reiki, and then she became a Reiki master, and so on. And I understood exactly what my mother's message was, and I understood why. And I told her, "I understand what you're talking about. When we finish with the manicures, we'll go to the back of the salon, we'll dim the lights, and then we'll do what we have to do." And when we finished, we dimmed the lights. We drew the curtain, I locked the door, and I said, "Now imagine my mother." and relax, and she will tell you what to do. She will guide you, and she says, "Yes, but tell me your mother's name because I don't know it." And I told her, "My mother's name is Rennie." But before that, I asked her, "What did my mother look like?" I know what she looked like after she passed away. She is like a cyclamen lilac, more like a lilac glow, when she tries to condense and materialize.
But is there a form?
Yes, there is.
There is.
There is, yes, there is, but her energy is...
Like that.
Yes, that's the color of the energy. The energy itself, you know, of the soul is that color in the fifth dimension. And she told me what she looks like. She told me that she asked her, "Why me? Margarita has so many friends. Why me?" And she told her, "Because you really don't know what you and Margarita are to each other." And that's it. And when we went to the back room, well, it's one room, but in the back part, she relaxed. We dimmed the lights and she started putting her hands here, on my neck, on the back of my head, on my head. And I hadn't explained anything to her, what it was about, whether it would be about legs, arms, here, the body, nothing. After about 5 minutes, it was literally as if I could feel the energy, you know, here from my mom, and I could feel it even through my skin.
That it was hers?
The energy, yes, my mom's energy, and here from the hands as well. And when we finished, I asked her what happened, and she told me that she closed her eyes and imagined my mom the way she saw her in when she fainted and said, "Rennie, come now to help your daughter the way you want to." And she started to see my mom, and behind my mom there was an energy like the sun, so to speak, from which energy my mom would take balls of light, put them in her hands, and tell her exactly where on my body to place her hands with this light. After that, the session ended, so to speak, and she didn't know what was happening to her. A few days later, she called me and asked, "Margot, was that real? What happened? Was it real?" And I told her, yes, it was real. And she said, "If it wasn't you, if it hadn't happened, I would have thought I was going crazy." I said, "It's completely normal." After that, it happened that we had to go to Sofia. I had to get a second Doppler, and it turned out that absolutely, I have the first Doppler with me. And they told me, "This first Doppler is wrong, this is not your Doppler. Your blood vessels, veins, everything is textbook clean."
There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to worry about.
Yes, this can't be your test result. After that, this client delivered messages from my mother to me several times. Because I had lowered my vibration a lot, grief from death really lowers your vibration, and it was very hard for her to reach me. When I grieve, when I cry, even after she passed away, during the first day or two, she tried to reach me between waking and sleeping states. To kind of materialize like a haze, and yes, I could see her, but that didn't help me as a person with emotions and feelings to lessen the grief. On a purely mental level, I know how things are, I've read about them. Actually, it's not just me, other people too. We grieve for ourselves that we can't see our loved ones, that we can't touch them. Otherwise, I know that she's fine, that nothing hurts her, that she's not suffering.
You understand it intellectually, mentally, but even so, it doesn't stop you from...
It doesn't stop...
The feeling?
Yes, it doesn't stop the feelings, the emotion of sadness, because I can't touch her, I can't hug her. You know, I talk to her in my mind, and I know that it reaches her, and she answers me. But I miss the purely physical experience, the purely physical, to touch the physical form, to hug.
To hug.
The physical form? The physical form, to hug, yes. And it was very hard. We had built a very strong bond, and it was very hard for us to separate on a physical level. I felt pain, not only emotionally, mentally, but on all 7 levels.
Let me interrupt you so we can make an introduction, because you tell stories in a very interesting and engaging way. I really love how we dive right in, because that's the point. I got immersed.
I just got immersed too. Now I will.
Today's guest comes from a very significant area in Bulgaria, and that is Shipka, or the region of Kazanlak, the area and the valley of the kings of the true Bulgarian and Thracian traditions. And she, during the day, is a manicurist, at other times a psychologist, and also works with bioresonance. And life introduced her to the world of energy early on, and she is not afraid to go out and share her own experiences, which is both the definition and the reason why we started Reality Explorers. It is my great pleasure to welcome Margarita Vasileva. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you too. I am very happy that you invited me and that we got to meet so I can share everything that I'm experiencing and will continue to experience in the future.
Actually, everything started with a long email from you, right? Can we briefly summarize it for the people? I'm sure they'll understand it throughout the story, but how did it happen that you wrote to us and wanted to share this information? Many people are afraid to say something like this to a complete stranger.
Well, I was actually encouraged by my friend and other friends, but as we know, nothing happens by chance. And my friend who encouraged me the most is called Valia Valeto.
Seriously?
Absolutely seriously, yes. Her name is Valia.
Oh, here we go.
Nothing is random. Everything is strictly coded, and Valia was actually one of the main reasons. Because I tell her a lot about what happens to me, how I experience realities, and she always told me, you have to share this, you have to tell this story. So after I heard your call on the show several times, I thought to myself, since nothing is random, and since she, even though I hear your voice too, calling me, so to speak, it means I really have to share my story.
That's really cool because it's very strange sometimes because, as you can see, we're a small team here on site, and often I'm alone in front of a camera. And when I talk about it, even after these 10 years, I can't feel or see how many people are watching it at the same time or in what way they're seeing it. One of my calls like that, something that was emotional at some point, just to, come on people, that's what we're here for, to share it. It reached you, you responded, and now you're here. That's the chain of cause and effect that leads to many beautiful encounters. Before we start with your very interesting stories about what you gave us, what you brought us, let's show it to the people.
I wanted to leave not only an energetic imprint, but also a physical one.
It's very beautiful.
Something to remind us of our meeting. And since I come from the heart of Bulgaria, from the valley of the Thracian kings and roses, which is a very high energy place, not only for Bulgaria, but for the world. That's why I brought the symbol of our city, the Thracian tomb. We have many Thracian mounds in the valley itself. There really are a lot. This is also a symbol of my own beginnings, for as long as I can remember, because this central part, which belongs to the king and the queen, and the gifts he presents to her, it is believed, it is thought, that this is their farewell dinner. How true that is, I don't know.
Okay.
That's what people say. They are then buried together with their servants, with their horses. And this painting, this scene, is in our apartment where I grew up, covering the whole wall in the living room. And I grew up with this painting, exactly this episode, captured just 200 meters from the Thracian tomb itself. 200 meters.
That's very interesting.
And my life begins with this scene, with this energy. And it starts to develop from there.
When was the first time you felt that the world isn't what they describe it to be? Maybe since you were a child?
I have memories from around, I guess, 2 or 2.5 years old, because I remember the crib I was in. Later, I asked how old I was when I was still in that crib and when they put me to sleep in my own bed. And that's why I'm saying more or less what they've told me, you know. And my first memories are that I am glowing. Energy that separates from a bigger sphere starts to move slower and slower, and the light itself begins to fade.
To fade.
The light itself fades. And that's the heaviest feeling I've ever experienced as a child. When I went to bed, that I was separated, my light was extinguished. The feeling is that my speed slows down, and I become slower and slower.
In other words, you become more and more limited.
Yes, and that was the most depressive feeling I've ever felt since I was born, and I wanted to forget it and never feel it again, because it's suffocating.
Later, when you started school, did that stay somewhere in your subconscious, or did you totally forget about all of it?
I wanted to forget it, yes, I wanted to forget it, and I did forget it for quite a long period of time. Yes, I had forgotten it.
And where did it find you again later? When did the bell ring?
The bell of... The feeling itself rang the bell, and I remembered it when I asked myself the question, from which moment should I write the letter to you? Where should I start from? And in my mind, I heard from the beginning, from the very beginning, and I asked the question, what was the very beginning? And then I remembered.
Wow. This is how... When did you manage to learn how to ask a question and believe the answer that comes, that it's really for you and not made up?
I've been asking myself questions for as long as I can remember, but when did I manage to accept the answers and know that they're for me? Much later, maybe at a much more conscious age. 19, 20, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so pretty much right after finishing high school, somewhere around there.
Yes, exactly there.
And since you told me before we started that you're one of those people who first experience things and then look for an explanation somewhere out there for what happened. Can you remember the first or the most striking thing like that happened to you and you then found the explanation for it, and where did you find it?
The first thing was when I was 19 years old. With my mother, we went to Chudomir's house in Kazanlak to an exhibition of energy paintings. And there I met a woman who had previously told my sister that when I get a headache, I will go outside and she wants to meet me. And that's exactly what happened. And then she told me, I want you to come and I'll teach you how to work with energy and charge water. And I went to her house and there she started teaching me. She was and still is a healer who continues to do this work to this day.
What did you learn the most from her? What did you understand?
The first thing I learned was that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. That was the first thing I learned at the age of 19. She showed me how to charge the water, how to work with energy, and she told me that after that I would learn on my own how to work with energy. Those were her exact words. Later on, over the years, I attended a Reiki course several times, which I completed, but honestly, it's not my thing. I don't recognize it as my thing. And just as she said, I have my own practice, which over the years was enriched by the higher powers. And I work with my own practice. I don't use Reiki.
You follow your own path?
Yes, I follow my own individual path.
And tell me about Carlos Castaneda before we move on. Was there someone in your life who was interested in this and shared it with you?
Yes, actually, he didn't share it with me like, for example, Carlos Castaneda says this or that. No. He interpreted it in his own individual way. In a way that a child could understand.
Yes, and what about there? What do you remember from all of that?
The first thing I remember from him, and which is very important to me, is what love looks like. When he came home, I saw through his eyes what love looks like. True love for my mother, of course. As there are no coincidences, his name is Christo. Christo, like Christ, like Christ.
Like Christ, yes.
He is a very important person to me and came into my life like my Christ, like my Savior, so to speak, and taught me many important things.
He came just in time.
Absolutely just in time. Yes, he taught me many valuable lessons, something that he told me in a way that a child could understand. When I had very painful crises related to this migraine, I really wanted the pain to stop.
Yes.
And I used to ask him questions. Why does it hurt? I want it to stop, and so on. And he explained to me that a person grows through pain, the lessons we need to learn. And another very important thing is that when we really, really want something, it becomes reality. Those were his exact words.
That's powerful. What is something that up to today you really, really wanted and it became reality?
Many things, almost everything, the life that I'm living. Almost everything, including the work that I do.
You wanted to do it.
Absolutely, yes.
You set the conditions and environment.
Yes, I even have... Now, I remember something, I can't write every single thing in the letter. But when I wanted to become a manicurist and I said I want to become a manicurist and I didn't know where to take the courses, I went to look in Stara Zagora and I didn't know where to find it, and I said to myself, now I'm going to start and look in salons to ask, but I didn't find anything anywhere, and I thought, now I'll go to the cousin of my ex-husband. And when I went to her, she said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm coming to see you. And I continued, because I'm looking for a place to find manicure courses. She said, well, in the next room. And I said, what do you mean in the next room? Right here, she said, right next to me. And I said, let's go and see. So we went and I asked them, I'm interested in a manicure course. And they said, yes, we offer them. We're just waiting for one more person and we'll start next week.
Waiting for one person, we start next week.
And I said, I'm the person. And so we started the course, after which I had no idea where I would work, in what kind of room. I hadn't thought about it at all. And getting off the minibus, since the course was held in Stara Zagora and I'm from Kazanlak, I went to make an appointment with my hairdresser, and when she saw me, she said, hey Gita, I see you passing by here every day. Where are you going? What are you doing? And you never call me. And I said, well, Gary, I'm taking a manicure course, but now I'm here to make an appointment for a haircut. And she said, really? He told me, yes, the place is available, you can rent it at any time. We agreed on when I should start, and when I finished the course with all the materials, they arrived at the salon and the materials were still in the boxes. When my colleague, the hairdresser, came in and said, you have a girl, she wants you to do her manicure. And I said, how? I don't know anything, what, where... Well, she said,
start.
That she'll wait. And so...
Things rushed in before they even started, and they began.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. Then I had another incident when I decided to take some extra courses many years later in Blagoevgrad, and that's how I had arranged with the instructor to go. And this is a completely unfamiliar city. It's my first time going, but out of excitement and eagerness, I get up early in the morning, go to the center to buy myself a coffee, and I say, now I'll just ask someone here where the address is. I didn't have Google at that time, we didn't have the devices we have now. And I say to myself, I'll pick someone older, because usually older people know the addresses, young people don't really know them. And I picked a gentleman, he fit my idea, and I asked him, excuse me, do you know where this address is? He says, oh yes, I know, I'm actually going that way. Would you like me to take you there?
Seriously?
And I say, yes, okay. And he took me there. I see that there's 1 hour left until the meeting. For example, if we agreed to meet at 10, it was only 9. So I call and say, Ina, don't come to pick me up because I found where you are. She said, really? And I say, I'm in front of the salon. After that, we met, started working, and at lunch we went out to have a cigarette, and then the gentleman in question comes and says, hey, Ina, I told you to put signs up. People can't find you. This morning, for example, I found a girl in the center and brought her here, and she looks at him, we look at him, and she asks me, is this the girl? And he says, oh, yes, and I say, yes, this is the gentleman. She says, and this is the landlord. And I say, out of all of Blagovgrad, I ended up with the landlord. And she says, apparently. So I just want to say that
These are synchronicities.
when you're on the right path, yes. And since then, when these synchronicities started happening to me, I realized that this is the main sign for a person to understand, or at least for me, that when a person is on their path, there are many signs and synchronicities, and we should follow the signs and synchronicities.
How would you answer this question? We are often asked, am I on my path? I mean, what does that mean to you?
For me personally, it means exactly those synchronicities and signs.
Are they there?
They're there, and there are many.
So you're on the right track.
Exactly, even when someone is most on their path, I'll put it that way, because there are. Now here we get to quantum reality and different timelines. Let's go, we have one main life plan that we need to walk. There are many paths. The soul, in my opinion, or rather my soul, has chosen one main path, which is the easiest in quotes, the one with the most signs and help. We have free will, we can go out, but it's harder and more thorny there. And when a person is most on their path, in the main timeline, then it's literally like an escalator. Just like an escalator, you just step onto the path and it takes you up by itself.
How did you first understand this concept of timelines? Because for a lot of people, it's still complicated. We've been talking about it for quite a while, but I'm curious how it is from your point of view.
About the timelines?
How do you understand this thing physically?
I understood the timelines in a very interesting way, which is different from synchronicities. These are different things, the timelines. I have a story with a Tarator.
With Terator.
That's right.
That's it. With Terator, you can explain timelines. That's the coolest way I've ever heard.
The smallest things in life can explain really big ones. My ex-husband really loves eating Terator that's rich in cucumber.
Yes.
Rich in cucumber. At that moment, my eldest son was born. He was a child who didn't want to eat food. And it was very hard for us to make him eat something. And on rare occasions, he could eat cucumber. So I always made sure, if there weren't many cucumbers at the moment, to save one for him, just in case he decided to eat. At least there would be one. And it just so happened that my husband wanted to eat Tarator. We had 2 cucumbers at home, and I was in the hallway, where we have a fridge and a table with vegetables on it. I see 2 cucumbers, even though I know that my husband likes to eat rich Tarator with 2 cucumbers. I tell myself, yes, but what if the little one wakes up and wants to eat a cucumber, and I don't have any left? I'll leave 1 cucumber for him. And with the other cucumber, I'll make the Tarator. I take the cucumber, I take the yogurt, everything I need. I put the bowls on the table. I serve myself, my husband, and I wait for him to come. He comes, sits at the table, looks at the Tarator, takes a spoonful and says, "How many cucumbers did you use to make the Tarator?" And I tell him, "Well, with 1. And he says, "What, just 1? And then, he gestures.
Yes.
And at that moment, I feel like something is sucking me in, like a vacuum. And I end up back in the starting position in the hallway.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing that you're sharing this.
In front of the table, I see the 2 cucumbers and I start shaking. My whole body starts shaking. I can't realize or understand what's happening.
At that moment, do you remember that you've already made the Territor?
That's right.
You remember it.
I remember I've experienced it physically, and I can clearly tell the difference between déjà vu, which...
And this shift,
Déjà vu happens in the mind. You get a feeling of something you've already experienced, and what I experienced on the 3D level was completely different. Physically, with every single action experienced. To grab the cucumbers, the yogurt, the knife, to cut, to walk. This time physically, maybe about 30 minutes. How long does it take to make a Territor? 30 to 40 minutes at most, no matter how slow you are. And then I feel this vacuum, this suction, and I'm transported to another place. From the perspective of the event, I experienced it as if it were a journey back in time.
yes, which actually...
In principle, it's not like that. You end up in a different point of reality. But with my understanding back then...
Yes, it physically feels like that.
That's how I explained it to myself. I had to find some way to explain it. After all, you know, the human brain looks for a logical explanation.
You're the first person we've met who talks about this as a validation of everything I've been trying to explain. Not only for people who have read Vadim Zeland, who talks about the space of variations, the different points of reality, but also parallel realities, and actually this branching of the timelines. Here it is, experienced Margot. It's really intense, just as you describe it, exactly like those movies where you wake up and you already know what's going to happen.
I felt like I was in a movie. I didn't know what was happening, and I was very stressed. That's the exact word. And I started to tremble. Naturally, I began making the new Territor, the second one, while trembling. I took the 2 cucumbers, walked the same path to the kitchen. I started making the Territor again, in the same pot, and the whole time I was thinking about what had happened. If I'm making the Territor now?
Wait a minute now. Did you change your mind about taking the 2 cucumbers? That's the question here.
Yes, I took the 2 cucumbers. The only thing I understood is that I had to make a new choice. A new choice. That's what I understood, and I made the new choice. But only with the 2 cucumbers. Later, when I thought about it, I said to myself, I could have changed everything. I could have changed the knife. I could have changed the pot. I could have changed absolutely everything. But because of the stress.
Yeah, it happens.
Because it was about whether it should be 1 cucumber or 2, that's why only the number of cucumbers stayed in my mind. But actually, the choices can be many. It's not just about that 1 cucumber, whether it should be 1 or 2. The choices are unlimited. And if we take 2 cucumbers and do everything the same way, we enter one timeline. If we change the pot, we enter a different one. If we also change the knife, we enter yet another different one, and so on. Every time we change our choice, we enter different timelines. Let's put it that way. And then I made the Territor with the 2 cucumbers.
And the result was different.
And the result was different. But when my husband sat at the table and told me, again, he made the same gesture and said, "How many cucumbers did you use to make the Territor?" And I told him, "With 2. And he said, "Ah, okay. I thought you were going to make it with just 1 cucumber again."
Wow, so these lines are so close that...
They're really close, yes.
In one case, when it's done like this, it comes out differently, just as an insertion, right? Ah, I thought you were going to do it again with 1 or something, but it's different. And in the other case, you know, wow.
Yes. And from that moment on, I started looking for information about what was happening to me, what happened on a physical level, on a purely, absolutely physical level.
So, what lesson can we take from this, all of us who heard this story? Besides the fact that Territor is a very important thing, Bulgarian, in the smallest things, as the ancient principle says, as above, so below, as below, so above. So, does that mean that from just one move, from one choice, everything can change?
Absolutely everything.
But really everything.
Absolutely everything. The whole reality. Absolutely the whole reality. Even the smallest things can carry big lessons. The choices we make about the smallest things lead to different timelines. I make a distinction between reality and timelines.
What's your take on this thing?
My personal experience is that the timeline is a branch of Margarita, of the person Margarita and her decisions about what to do.
Where to go, what to do?
Yes, these are the timelines of this incarnation as Margarita.
Okay.
And the realities are, let's say, completely different, where I live other lives, where I'm not this person and not this ego.
I got it.
I'm not Margarita, other lives that are parallel to this one.
I got it. One is the more expanded, the expanded version. The other is more limited.
As each life carries its own timelines according to the decisions that person makes.
Cool, you mentioned quantum reality. How do you explain it? Fortunately, it's becoming more and more popular in Bulgaria too.
What exactly do you want to explain?
Overall, the fact that there are infinitely many versions of you according to quantum mechanics, everything depends on the button of your choice. How does knowing this, how does it change anything in everyday life when someone is sitting in front of you and you're doing their manicure?
We need to be aware as possible of what we say, what we do, what we think about everything, because every single thing it puts us on a different timeline in our life. And the more aware a person is, the more their consciousness expands, the more they enter and unfold the life of those particular realities. And it depends on how expanded a person's consciousness is, how many timelines or realities their consciousness can encompass. How great the potential is, the individual potential of each person.
Do you agree that they are accessible, but not everyone has expanded themselves
They are absolutely accessible to absolutely every person who is on this earth, but it depends on each individual.
It depends on how far they will expand.
How far they will expand.
You told me this when we met, as we expand more, for example, during sleep. But here you mentioned something happening during sleep. More timelines can be experienced.
They can be experienced while awake. They can be experienced during sleep, just like it was shown to me. Physically speaking, anyone can do it. The question is how expanded the consciousness is, which also depends on the person's own personal vibration.
What you're saying is wonderful, I completely agree. But a question comes to mind that kind of turns this around, and I'm interested in your perspective on it. So what? What does it matter that I know this or that it happened to me? Why should I try to understand it in a way? Why should I dig deeper? Why should I even ask the question?
Because it changes your whole life, the quality of your life.
How does it change it?
In many different ways, it's very individual for each of us. It depends on what each person is looking for, what kind of life they've planned for themselves. For me, it opens many doors and I feel more complete that way.
More complete?
More complete with all of my aspects that exist. Because in every timeline or in every reality, there is an aspect of my soul, of the main spirit. And when I understand them, I become more whole and more complete with my main spirit.
Well said. What are dreams to you?
For me, dreams are when I grow and raise my vibration and expand my consciousness, different realities and timelines open up to me. There are different types of dreams, some that are dictated by the subconscious, some that come from everyday life, prophetic ones, and there are also those where you find yourself in other universes, in other realities, dimensions, planets, timelines.
What is the strangest thing you have ever dreamed? Where have you ended up that felt the most unusual to you?
The farthest.
The most ordinary and the most extraordinary, and not the farthest, but the scariest, yes. The scariest are, for me, the scariest are the realities I've found myself in. For humanity, for planet Earth, that's my most...
And do you think that they happen to us exactly so we can change our choice?
Exactly.
Each one of us individually and accordingly, collectively, to change it as well.
And
that's why it comes in the form of a dream, right? It doesn't happen.
they can also happen in a waking state to people who are at that level of awareness, so they can understand it and not get scared. But let's say at my level of consciousness, it happens in a dream state, so I don't get scared. That's how I chose it.
Yeah.
That's how I chose it.
Being yourself is a strange feeling.
My mother died after she found the first lump in her breast. She went through quite a long journey of... We thought she was getting treatment, but actually she wasn't. At that moment, that's all we knew, just with...
Was she hiding it from you?
No, with chemotherapy and radiation therapy, which isn't really treatment, that's what I mean. But back then, that's the level of understanding and awareness we had.
And after that, she passed away. She died in my arms. She died.
With the words, "I love you," we parted in the most... It may sound strange, but in the most beautiful way, both traumatic and beautiful. Because for a mother to say to her child, "I love you," and to feel how the person's soul leaves for their last breath to be used for that word. She used her last breath to tell me that she loves me.
I can't think of anything more beautiful as an ending.
Yes, that's why I'm saying it, because
Really, this is great.
something traumatic in itself, in my hands, to pass away, and at that very moment. But there's a little preface that she was in a coma. And when the hospital in Stara Zagora called me, saying she was in a coma and that I should come because she would most likely die. On the minibus on the way, I was listening to a song. By now we know that for me, nothing is a coincidence, and I listen to every single thing that's on the radio, on television signs in the sky.
Clock.
Yes, everything. And I also listened to Lily Ivanova's song, Condemned Souls, on the minibus to Stara Zagora. And everything became absolutely clear to me. And when I understood and started to pray to be given a reprieve, I also began to feel her, Father, my grandfather who is with her. And I started to pray to the higher powers and to my grandfather just to be given a reprieve, so I could say goodbye to her. While traveling in the minibus, I was praying. Then I went to the hospital. I was crouching, praying, explaining why I wanted this reprieve. And then I said that now she could go home. And I got in the elevator. And while I was riding in the elevator, my phone rang and I heard a voice. "Hello, Geet, Mom, it's me. I'm back." And for a moment, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I started to give thanks. Because only I know, what I had prayed for and what was happening. And when I got to the floor, they wrapped me up, and the doctor said she woke up on her own. She woke up by herself. And I knew that my grandfather was there, and the first thing she said was, "Do you know who was here?" And I said, "Yes, Grandpa." And she said, "Yes, he was leaning over me. He smiled at me, and then he left." And I said, "Yes, I know." And in the next moment, I started thanking again. And I asked her, "Do you want something?" And she says, "Yes, I want you to buy me this to eat." And some of the things, the fruits she asked for, were outside the hospital and were on a place a little higher than the ground, about 3 or 4 steps up. I went to buy those fruits, And when I was coming back and going down those steps, because the energy was very strong with everything that happened, and I was shaking all over, and I started to fall off the steps, maybe 2 or 3 meters. I started to fall off the steps. At that moment, I felt on a purely physical level, I felt an invisible hand pushing me back, and instead of falling forward, I actually stumbled backward.
Wow.
And at that moment, I realized that my spiritual guardian, it doesn't matter. Just keep me from going to the bed next to her, and then, well, everything was... It's so emotional, energetic, like an avalanche. We went home and I told my grandma to come, her mother, to come home, because my mom didn't have much time left. And even though I'm saying it, that purely human part of me didn't want to believe it. It becomes like a struggle between the human part, which doesn't want to believe it, doesn't want to let go, and the higher part, which knows these things, acts on them, walks the path, and tells them to others. Like in the case of my grandmother, I say, "Come, because my mother doesn't have much time left." And in the next moment inside, I say to myself, "No, right? No." That's purely the human part. And so we spent 3 days with my grandmother and my mother, and at one point my mother said something I will never forget. My mother said, "Well, girls, now we've gathered as if it's for the last time." Which for me was another sign that I wasn't imagining things, and that I had really just been given a reprieve. I don't know for what deserved reasons. And I realized that what I really wanted to say to my mother, I had to say it.
Did you manage to tell her everything that was on your mind back then?
Yes. I wanted to tell her that I am very grateful that she is my mother, and that if I had to choose again, I would choose her again. After that, shortly before she passed away, she wanted me to take her out into the yard to see the sun, and when she looked at the sun, she said, "Life is beautiful." And that was her favorite song, and in the ceremonial hall, we played that song, "Wonderful Life," for her. And after that, she sent a lot of signs through that song, through colors. She did a lot of things with signs, but not to break the story on the evening before she passed away. As the two of us were in the living room with the light on, suddenly it was as if darkness fell in my mind, and I saw on my left side a big hand, just like that. It passed in front of me. It opened a door that was as big as a garage door, a white door that I saw. Some green meadows with a bright light, and the source of the light couldn't be seen, but there was a bright light. And a white figure who was wearing a white dress and something like a white turban. She steps through the door and passes.
To the other side.
To the other side. And the door closed. And yet I saw it, and still the human in me didn't want to accept it. In the morning at 7:45, she passed away in my arms, telling me that she loved me. And from then on, she started sending many signs. But when she passed away, when her soul was leaving, I felt a physical pain in my stomach and my whole leg hurt. It was pure physical pain. I felt this separation on a physical level, not just emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. I felt this pain on every level.
Thank you so much for sharing this so sincerely and in such detail. I really appreciate it. Actually, I suppose that's the reason you started working with bioresonance.
No. The reason is that shortly after she passed away, She died in 2017 on December 15th, and we buried her on the 16th. It's very strange that she was born on the 15th, but her birth was registered on the 16th. After that, I found a lump in my breast because of the loss and from
The vibration.
the low vibration I entered on the same breast, in the same spot. And I started going to doctors. They told me that it was most likely cancer. They even told me that my mother and I were textbook cases, and they said that I would most likely need surgery. Yes, I went through chemo, radiation therapy, and I saw one doctor, then a second, then a third, but I didn't have a biopsy. I didn't have a biopsy because I just felt that I shouldn't mess with it, shouldn't introduce oxygen and so on, so I didn't get a biopsy. And after that, I also had a lymph node that was enlarged, just like hers. In the same way I said that I've already seen this path they're telling me about with the surgery and chemotherapy, I've already seen it. I saw how it ended and you don't choose it, and I said that.
And you don't choose it.
I choose another path.
And I started looking for ways to remove the lump in my breast, whatever it was. And when I had to heal, right? To quit smoking, to cleanse my body physically, but also on an energetic level. And then I was given a practice. When I say given, it wasn't given by a person. Yes, I just received it as information, as knowledge, that I should meditate and do visualizations in which I imagine myself in an energy egg, which I should anchor in my yard. It has to be on the ground, and I should pray for help to be given to me to heal my breast, after which I was told that I need to anchor an energy egg on the kidney lake of the 7 Rila lakes. And when I went there to meditate, I'm at home and I'm meditating and I enter energetically into this egg of the kidney. I found myself in a world, so to speak, above, where there are luminous beings. And yet, now, many people here will say this is just a product of imagination. The thing is, when I ask a question or make a request, I have to stand as if I'm in a movie theater watching a film. And I have to, at first, with the intention to meditate, with the intention to ask a question about a problem, and in the next moment, to become an observer. In this case, it depends on the problem. For example, I can ask for permission from a certain person to do energy work with them on a specific problem. And I say, do you allow me? Yes. And then I mentally guide the person into this portal. And from there I call upon energetic beings to come and do their work. And I start to watch what happens, and I have no idea how the person will be healed.
And you trust? And you let go?
I trust, but I'm not the one doing it. This is done by the beings, the energetic ones, who come through this portal and start working on an energetic level with the person. I'm just an observer. I only guide the person's etheric body that far on an energetic level, and everything else is done by other beings who have a contract with that person to work with them on a certain level and in the same way. I was working with my own egg, and I realized that I needed to anchor one at the kidney lake of the 7 Rila lakes as well. But to make it faster, I taught my husband to do the same thing. And in the evening, I would enter my own egg and call for help. And different beings on an energetic level would work with me. And at the same time, my husband would enter the portal of the kidney lake. And there, other work would be done so things could happen faster. At first, he didn't believe me. And something happened to him too, so he would believe me. He was at his place. I was at home, and one evening he called me and asked, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing. I'm at home." "Well, you'd better sit down." And I said, "Okay. Well, now I'm going to tell you something." I got home and wanted to eat, so I decided to fry 3 eggs. I fried them. I made myself a salad, put them on a plate, took out my utensils, put the pan in the sink, and since the countertop, right here, the eggs, the plate, and behind it is the table, I turned around to take the fork, knife, napkin, and salad to the table, and I left them there. And the moment I turned around, the plate with the eggs was gone, and I'm alone.
Did he tell you that?
He told me that.
He told me that on the phone.
On the phone.
Shortly after it happened, or...
Yes, shortly after the incident happened to him. And I ask, "So what did you do?" He says, "I started looking. I see the pan. It's still not washed. There's still steam. I'm hungry, which means I haven't eaten. The plate is gone. The eggs are gone." He told me whether he saw the watch, I don't remember, but he said, "Don't waste my time," and they're gone. And I say, "So what are you doing now?" He says, "I'm drinking whiskey." But he doesn't drink. I mean, he's not the kind of person who would just sit down and drink every night, like a habitual drinker. He doesn't have that habit. So it was quite shocking. And I told him that in my opinion.
What was your response to him then?
I said that, well, first we started thinking about it at that moment. I didn't answer him right away, but then I decided that it was because of that energy egg. And to show him that he should believe in this practice and help me, and that it's not just a product of imagination.
It's not made up.
It's not made up, and people who believe only in the material should believe that.
They need something shocking.
Yes, exactly, and in a meditation, a personal one, again asking for help on an energetic level to restore my energy, because actually for me an illness is not really an illness, but rather a transformation of a person's energy. It's just lowered energy in a person, right? And I wanted to be helped. And so the eggs started moving and began to rise, and from there I ended up in a small spaceship which was medical, and it was taking me to another bigger one. And from that moment, I started thinking that maybe they stole that saucer with the 3 eggs.
Were they the Arcturians? That's right.
Yes, they're actually different kinds, but there are also Arcturians.
Did you see any others or just...
I've seen many different ones in meditation, all kinds.
And what happened there?
And they're all kinds of beings.
Did what they did.
All sorts of things. They were doing all sorts of things. I've seen all kinds too. Chambers where they put energy bodies, restore them, replace them, just all kinds of beds, devices that to this day I can't explain how they work. They work with light, with sounds. After that, I walked down a corridor and entered something like a cabin which felt alive. It's like alive, like a biological cabin.
In what way? How?
How can I explain it?
You know, this whole thing has a consciousness.
Exactly. It has a consciousness. It's a living cabin. I'm saying this from my human.
From trying to make some kind of analogy.
And so yes, but she is...
What was in it?
She is alive. She is biological.
What did it look like?
Well, when it lit up, it looked like all kinds of consciousnesses, systems. It's hard to find the words with the human mind to explain something like that. But I perceived it as mine.
Yes.
As mine, but not Margarita's. Rather as something belonging to another, higher being. But Margarita can't explain it or find human words to.
Yes.
Express it. And after that, I've seen in another meditation, many different things have happened to me. Let's say one time I started to heal. Again, let's say my breast. This happens during meditation. At that moment, I was in my personal egg, and Quite unexpectedly, two humanoids entered my personal egg and they were blue-purple. At first, I saw a female figure who was holding a male figure. They are bigger, and at that moment, the female figure placed a green ball of light in my heart chakra. My portal was activated. We went to the ship, and from there, the female figure placed the male figure in something like a chamber, and from that chamber, the two of them teleported somewhere. It's like a movie. I can't explain what I saw.
It just happens.
It just happens, and what does it mean? Who are they? Where are they going? I have no idea, but it was my egg. My energy shield was used. Later on, I also had dreams with an Arcturian. That's how I found out. How Arcturians radiate. They radiate even though they don't actually speak. They communicate telepathically, but they radiate love. About 2 or 3 meters beyond them, it's so tangible that it physically starts to become almost solid. It has no equivalent. It has no human equivalent.
I'm having deja vu right now as you're saying this, by the way. Very interesting.
It's just that in this case, this Arcturian was walking toward me. I see myself as Margarita, because I was short and I don't know what I was saying. But he was walking toward me, and this love, it just overwhelmed me. It was so ethereal, gentle, and in the next moment, so strong. And he was saying to me, "And why are you scolding me now? Why are you scolding me now?" And he was coming toward me, tall about 2.5, maybe 3 meters, I have no idea. He came, knelt down next to me to be at the same level, and I sat on his knee, so we could be equal. And there was so much love radiating. I was energized for months ahead, and I just didn't want it to end. There's no such love on Earth. It's unique.
Unique.
When we were coming back from Sofia, from the last doctor, I was saying to myself in my mind, "God, show me the way and who will help me." And at that very moment, I saw the letter E in the sky. That letter E
Later turned out to belong to a person who works with radio frequency therapy in Bulgaria. Yes.
In Bulgaria?
Plovdiv,
Cool.
and his name is Emil. And from then on, it was perfectly clear to me that this is the way of radio frequency therapy, of bioresonance, like when my mother was still alive and I asked the question, "What is this thing due to?" I received a vision with a doctor in a white coat who was looking through a telescope. No, not a telescope, sorry, my mistake, a microscope, who turned to me and just said, "Bloodware," and the vision ended. It turned out later that it was Dr. Rafe. Until that moment, I didn't know about this vision. It was him, he was looking through a microscope. And then we got in touch with Emil, and I was also there with his device. I got to know the devices with Rafe.
With Rafe, the frequencies.
Bioresonance, the frequencies, and so from there on. We bought Bioresonance. First a zapper, then Bioresonance. And that's how I started down the path of frequencies, vibration, and everything else.
When someone comes physically, what does bioresonance allow you to do? Yes. What does it add to the deep intuition and knowledge that you already have and can see even without the machine?
I can see the viruses that are in the body, I still haven't learned how to use my intuition for that.
So, just the physical manifestations?
Absolutely.
To detect them with something physical manifestations?
Yes, the physical manifestations, yes, of the energy
that are present in a person, in the systems, to see where they are, whether they're in the brain, in the liver, in the lungs, and so on. They can be seen, and in the same way, when I see them and I didn't know how to heal them, I ask questions and I get answers.
And when I asked the question, okay, now I see these viruses and what should we do with them?
What should we do?
Yes, not everyone has a Rife machine, not everyone has bioresonance. How about an ordinary person? And then through a friend, I was sent the book by medical medium, which, in the same way, through Synchronicities, led me to this studio. The last thing I wrote on Messenger was about Raya and the synchronicity with the glasses. And Paradise Mall. They are connected?
Oh, that's very interesting. Can you tell the story?
Yes, I can.
With, like, the way you feel it, because you tell it in such detail, which is very interesting. It's just that people don't know that initial thrill of a messenger message in this case. Let's introduce them to that moment at Paradise Mall as well.
Actually, it's just...
And Paradise.
Yes, actually, that's just one of the many things that happened to me. Things like this happen to me every day.
That's the point.
Yes, we just need to see and be aware, observant of everything around us. For example, I simply ask myself the question, should I check this dietary supplement with the pendulum? Should I...
Whether it's for me or not.
Whether it's for me or not. And in the next moment, I hear on the television at the very same moment when I'm wondering, should I check with the pendulum? And I just hear the word pendulum. And that
every single day, absolutely every day, for almost everything. And these little synchronicities are an everyday thing for me.
Cool.
As a result of my lump shrinking and disappearing. All of these practices, everything I'm talking about, it's all connected, all these things, and I started helping people, anyone who reached out to me. I mean, my friends, acquaintances, my sister started telling their friends who had such problems that I could guide them on how to recover on their own.
And that's how people started reaching out to me, and I started helping them. Then when I would tell them, you need to get this, and this, these herbs, these tinctures, and they would come back and say to me, okay, you're telling me what I should get, but half of the things, I don't know where to find them, I don't know where to buy them.
Some of the things are on different websites, they're not all in one place. With every order, there's a different cash-on-delivery fee, and that's how it gets more expensive for people.
Okay, so now, why don't you go ahead and restock? Why don't you go ahead and restock? Why don't you go ahead and restock? And I say, okay.
First, I started to restock one product, then a second product. The most important ones, the ones I thought were necessary, but there were quite a few of them. And so, at one point, the salon where I was working was no longer enough. And we had to make a separate room. That's how we opened a store. Then we started going to health festivals with a stall, and after that, our journey took us to Sofia on Nicholden. We were at another festival there, and in the evening, we stayed at my spiritual sister's place, the daughter of the man who raised me, his biological daughter. Her name is Michaela, and we stayed at their place. Her husband is Galen. He works at an optician's in Sofia and is telling a story. He doesn't understand English, and I don't understand English either. I speak Bulgarian, and I prefer to speak and think in Bulgarian because it matters both to me and to my energy. And he's telling a funny story about how he had to speak English, but he doesn't understand English. A customer comes in and wants a specific pair of glasses, and he tells him that they have those glasses at their other store, which is located in Paradise Mall. But instead of telling him that it's located in Paradise Mall, he just tells him that he needs to go pick them up from Paradise, which basically means that it's like he has to go and pick them up from heaven.
Yes.
Right now he's telling him, oh no, but. And the next day we passed by Paradise Mall and we saw where Paradise Mall is. After that, we went back to Kazanlak. A week went by, I was working and a client came to me, we were talking and I said, Teddy, do you know that I came across a very interesting book that's about healing. It's called Medical Medium. This book gave me answers to questions related to what to do with these particular viruses that I see in the bioresonance. And actually, the medical medium has discovered how to treat these particular viruses with natural remedies and herbs. And I recommend her to get it and read it because it's interesting. And I tell her that I ordered it and my son has to bring it to me. I ordered it here from Plovdiv and my son has to bring it to me and I'm looking forward to it. And she says, yes, okay, I'll look for it, I'll find it myself. And in the next moment she says to me, paradise. And I say, excuse me, while I'm doing her nails. At that very moment, there's another client waiting who will be after her.
Yes.
I'll do her after her.
She's inside too. She's inside and listening.
She's inside and listening.
I also have a student, because I'm teaching her, there's a student who is there as well. And she witnesses the same conversation. And I say, what? And she goes, when I was in Afghanistan as a military medic and I wanted to go buy something to eat. I wanted to buy some fries and I'm there at this designated place where there's food. And instead of saying I want the fries that are under, above, or whatever there, I accidentally got confused and said to give me the fries from paradise, from heaven.
Wow.
And he said, oh, but, and she realized what a mistake she made and corrected herself. And I say, Teddy, why are you telling me all this?
Out of nowhere right now.
Why are you telling me this?
Within a week, I hear this word paradise for the third time and for the second time. Someone gets confused and instead of saying this,
What they want?
they talk about paradise. And she says, because I see on the case of your glasses, there's an inscription, paradise, and that case has been on my desk for years. Again, I don't understand English. I just see the inscription. I've read it once, I've ignored it. I look and I really see that it says paradise. And I say, Teddy, since you're one of my people, tell me. And I tell her what happened. Why? For the second time in a week, I'm getting this synchronicity with paradise, which is also connected to glasses. Because Galen works at an optician's, it's about glasses, and here we have a double or even triple synchronicity. Glasses, paradise, and confusion from one language to another. And she says, I think it's connected to visions and what you see and what you receive as information from heaven, which for me is the fifth dimension. Actually, people call it heaven.
Can you explain that? How do you understand it?
What people call heaven for me is the fifth dimension reality. And she says, in my opinion, this information that you see and receive from heaven, so to speak, well, let's use the word everyone is used to hearing.
Actually, it's a place that's much more abundant, happy, and light. Light.
Yes.
Fulfilling.
And last year I had another vision with Jesus and I told her about it when she came. And I share all kinds of things with her because, again, I feel like she's my person, someone who unconsciously connects with the Arcturians, and that's why I recognize her, even vibrationally. And she says, because of what you see in your visions, that's why it's connected to eyes and to paradise, that's why.
And here is the question whether we are ready to allow ourselves to create it, to see it, to experience it.
Yes, we talked about this with her, about this synchronicity, and I asked her, what do you think? What should I do? And she said, well, I don't know. Just let go. See what happens. Follow your visions, so to speak. And that was the end of our conversation. I sit down to work on the other client. I was giving a pedicure to the other client, and while I'm working on her, on the radio we hear Paradise Mall, a commercial for Paradise Mall, and the three of us look at each other and start laughing. And I say, girls, do you hear that? And they're like, yeah, we hear it. And I ask them, so what do you think I should do? And the client says, I think you should go to Paradise Mall.
Haha, that's the conclusion, right?
Yes, the simplest thing.
And to buy yourself glasses, ha.
And I say to myself, now I'm starting to talk to myself, and I say, I can't go to Mall Paradise. First of all, I don't know when. Second, if it's tomorrow, since it's Saturday. I have a client, and clients are very important, and it's for a pedicure. And for me, people who need a pedicure, a medical pedicure, are a priority because they really have a need. And a little later, the client says, oh, and by the way, my daughter said she has an appointment for a pedicure tomorrow and said to cancel it because she'll be at a banquet and she won't be able to come. And I say, Milenka, do you know that just a little while ago I was thinking to myself that there's no way I could go to Paradise Mall because I have an appointment, and now you just canceled my appointment for me. And she says, well, that means you have to go to Paradise Mall. Despite everything, that means you have to go to Paradise Mall.
And did you end up going?
Wait, and we keep doing our job, we keep doing our job. And I say, okay, we'll go to Paradise Mall, but what am I supposed to do in Paradise Mall? Now we're really advertising the mall here. My colleague who studies in Sofia comes in. And I greet her and she brings me a gift, which is an unexpected present for me. I open it and see the book that I was waiting for my son to bring me, but it arrives earlier than expected from the hands of my colleague. And I look at myself. I can't believe my eyes that it arrived earlier, because I was eagerly waiting for this particular book, which I had already heard about. Actually, I have already listened to it, but I am waiting for it to come in print. And at some point, suddenly, just like that, spontaneously, since we're talking about the mall, she comes from Sofia, and I say, hey Kotze, tell me what's happening at Paradise Mall. And she, all startled, says to me, I don't know, why? What's happening at Paradise Mall? And I say, I have no idea, you're coming from Sofia. And she goes, well, I have no idea what's happening at the mall, but I bought you this book from Paradise Mall. And we just look at each other with the client and the student, and both the client and the student say in unison, no way, you just have to go to that mall. And I call my husband and tell him, just so you know. And at the same time, the next day, we were supposed to be somewhere else. And I really felt that I shouldn't be there. But when I make a commitment, I try to give my best.
There are moments like that where...
But yes. But when such synchronicities happen, and I know that these synchronicities, they...
That's straight up calling. That's not a nudge, that's calling.
The next moment, another colleague of mine came, and we started telling her what was happening. That day, we told the story many times.
And work and everything was gone.
That's right. The other colleague said, well, that means you take your kids and you leave. And I called one of my sons, then the other, and I asked them if they wanted to come with me to take part in this adventure. And they agreed, and together we all headed to the mall. When I told my husband that we had to go to Paradise Mall, he asked me, "Why?" And I started to explain, and of course he believes me. He has no choice but to believe me, because something else might disappear.
It's better for me to believe because tonight I've got myself a Lukanka and I want it to stay with me.
And so we did everything to get ready to go to the mall. And now he starts, "Okay, so what time do we have to go to the mall?" I said, "I have no idea. And since I have no idea, it's better if we just get our work done and
have our time free.
What we can get from Sophia related to our work. To stock up on some things, to pick them up. And when we finish our work, then we'll go to Mall Paradise. And we finished our work related to stocking up on goods, and only then did we go to the mall. And then he says, "Okay, so what are we looking for now?" And I tell him, "I have no idea what we're looking for. The important thing is that we're here, and not where we were supposed to be. Sometimes we just need to be somewhere else." From the perspective back then, we didn't see any reason to be there, but from today's point of view, that synchronicity brought me here to this studio. If we hadn't noticed the synchronicity and decided to go. When you did the show about synchronicities, which you said you hadn't done in a long time and didn't know why it needed to be done, I said then that I would write to you for the second time. A year ago, I sent you a letter that somehow didn't reach you.
Exactly.
And I said I wouldn't write. And I would wait for a sign. And actually, that was the sign for me to write again, so we could meet and I could come here to tell the story. And when I wrote the letter, other things have happened since then until now. And the vision that I received on the 28th, 27th, or 28th of February 2025, I hadn't experienced it yet. I mean, it was a little after. I sent the letter in December, and the vision happened in February.
Unique stories. Really, when you tell them, you jump from experience to experience, you can feel that it's from the heart. And really, at least I was there, at least for here, the time when you told it.
Can I tell about the vision?
Yes, go ahead, tell us about the vision.
The vision in question happened after the wheat diet that my husband and I did, and on the last day of the wheat diet. It so happened that we had an engagement and I couldn't eat, and actually we spent the last day fasting completely, only on water. And because of my illness, I have fasted for 3 days, not just me, but my husband as well. 3 days on water, 5 days on water, 8 days on water, 10 days only on water, to cleanse our bodies. That day, when I was on a complete fast, we were in Veliko Tarnovo at the hotel, and in the evening I was walking the dog. And at that moment I got a thought in my head. When I say a thought, I mean it's not a voice. I don't hear voices, it's just a thought.
What was that thought?
To say the prayer, Our Father.
At that moment?
From that point on, from that moment forward, I wasn't religious and I didn't even like going to churches or monasteries. No, I had heard her name, but I had never read her prayer. Then I went back to the hotel and started looking in. The internet for the prayer, and I started saying it. I didn't know why, but I started saying it. After that, in the evening, my husband and I went to bed. And we had to do the energy practice for a woman we know who is sick with cancer to bring her into... I did it my way. He did it in the Rila egg, and after I finished my energy practice. And at that moment in the darkness, I start to see in my mind with my eyes closed, I start to see on my left side. A movie starts playing and sheep start walking.
Scenes.
Scenes, yes. Sheep start walking.
Sheep that are passing before my eyes. And they reach a lake, and this lake is bathed in light. The lake is a calm lake.
Yes.
And I see them, and I see the shepherd in the distance between me, from my point of view as an observer, and the shepherd between the two of us. A door made out of 3 planks appears out of nowhere. Between the two of us, but it's a door, not a real door with a frame, just 3 planks, like a portal, sort of. About 50 centimeters wide.
Okay.
And I see on the other side of this, let's say, door, the shepherd coming toward me, and at first I only see a silhouette. The moment he stands at the door, I see Jesus, and he gestures to me with his hand, beckoning me to come to him, to go to him, to follow him. And I look at him, and I started walking toward the door. He was sitting at the door, not on my side, that is. He was sitting on the
Inner side, from your point of view, on the inner side from his outer.
That's right. And I started walking toward him, and the vision ended. And at that moment, since we were near a church, at that moment the bell rang. Oh.
Wow. All of these experiences, especially, do they bring you peace?
Yes. Yes, they bring me great peace. First, that I have walked this path for my soul. And second, in this way, I feel connected to what I had forgotten, to the energy I was separated from. I felt separated. In this way, I feel connected within myself through my soul.
Margot, it's a pleasure for me since we're heading toward the end. We traditionally end every conversation with a few questions, and the idea is that you should be able to answer them in 1 sentence. And I'd be glad if we could do that with you too, because I'm sure something very profound will come out of it. From everything that you constantly experience.
Yes.
Did you answer the question, where do we come from?
I come from the source.
And where are we going?
There, to the source.
And what's the point?
The experience and the love.
And what is love?
Everything.
Absolutely everything.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
There are actually 3 of them.
All right.
The first one is from my mom, that anything is possible. There's nothing impossible. And the other 2 are from Itzo. The person who raised me taught me that if you really, really want something, it becomes reality. And to follow myself.
And who is the most negative advice you've been given? The worst.
It's not advice, but that's... What will people say?
If you had the opportunity right now to leave a message that would reach everyone listening, watching, and even the whole planet Earth, what would you truly say to them?
I would truly tell them to follow true love, not the kind between partners, but love in its purest form. The message that Jesus left us is exactly that, love. And not to be blinded by technology, gadgets, money, low passions, but to follow exactly that, the path of love, because love is the highest vibration and feeling, and only love in its purest sense will lead us to the original source.
Thank you very much for this sincere, long, and love-filled participation.
Thank you too.
It was a great pleasure for us.
For me as well.
Thank you.